Hi there, it's Jennifer, and welcome to my Flagstaff home. Today I wanted to talk to you about some stuff that I've been doing for cooking dinner that sort of makes dinner time a whole lot less stressful deal. Let me first say that I really like to cook, but with crazy schedule and everything, sometimes it's just hard to come home at the end of the day and have the time or the energy to put together a meal for your family. Now, I don't have it as difficult. My husband and I were the only ones who live in this house. And so sometimes if I'm not in the mood to cook, I just say, we're snacking, or let's order out or something like that. But I have been kind of looking into, for the last little while, this concept of, can you hear my dog up there? Oh, there she is. She was up there snorting, rolling around on her back and snorting. I think, is she gonna show herself here? Yeah, there's Vanessa. Anyway, sorry about that. This is the concept of doing make-ahead meals. Now, there are different names for this. Sometimes they call them make-ahead meals, and that would be something that you make, put in the freezer, and then you can thaw it out and put in the oven or crock pot. They also have a similar thing that's just called freezer meals, and freezer meals can have parts of them where parts of the recipe are cooked, or it could just be that you're combining all of the raw ingredients into a bag, a Ziploc bag, and freezing that, and then when it comes to cooking on the day you're going to cook, everything's in there and you just dump it. So that's another thing. They also have a concept called cook once, eat 3 times, or cook once, eat twice, or cook once, eat for a week, whatever. And that basically means that on one day of your week, you're gonna cook up some things that are pretty time intensive. Like if you have a few recipes that are gonna call for roasted bell peppers. Well, roasting some bell peppers takes some time. But if you do them in bulk and you use a little bit in different ways in different meals, now you've just saved yourself some time. Another thing you might fix up is several batches of rice or a whole chicken, and then you use that in different recipes throughout the week. And then the last thing is when you're making a double batch of something, and that way you can either make a double batch and freeze both of them, or you can make a double batch and serve one to your family for dinner that night and freeze the other one to have at another time. So, like I said, I've been looking into this, and yesterday I just went for it. So I picked out a bunch of recipes that are appropriate for freezing. And some kinds of foods don't do well after they're thawed. And so I'm gonna link in the coordinating blog post in the space below. I'm gonna take you over to my blog at myflagstaffhome.com, and I will show you the recipes that I used, and I'm gonna show you today kind of a little bit about what I was doing yesterday as well. So I ended up making 28 meals yesterday. It took up most of my day. I went to the grocery store at about 11 o'clock, and I was home a little bit after 12, and then I had to start doing the prepping of certain things that you have to chop and everything, and then I started cooking. And some of my recipes, what took the longest were the ones that had things that had to be cooked ahead of time, like ground beef, and then the onions and garlic in with that. But the ones that you just kind of throw everything in, those were really fast. So I probably ended up cooking or getting everything prepped for about 4 hours yesterday, but now my freezer has 28 meals in it. And I just made meals for 2 because I didn't want to have a bunch of leftovers. But here's what I did. I wanted to make sure that the meals I had were not all just casseroles. Or just all stew. I wanted to make sure that it was a variety of stuff. I also wanted to make sure that I used different kinds of meat. I did come up with a few chicken recipes, but chicken isn't my favorite meat. I'll eat it, but it's not my favorite. So I made sure that I got some different kinds of meat and even some meatless dishes. So let me tell you what I came up with. Then I'll show you a little bit about what I was doing in my kitchen and what everything looked like when it was all finished. And then I'll come back to you and kind of tell you where you can get all this stuff. All right, so I made a honey teriyaki chicken. I made a honey curried chicken. I also made, it's kind of a tater tot I don't want to say casserole. It has tater tots and cheese and bacon and chicken in it. That goes in a crock pot. All of those things I mentioned get dumped into a crock pot. I also did another crock pot thing, which was a cheesy tortellini, and it actually has some meat in the sauce. I did some that were just, let's see, that didn't have any meat in them. I did a stroganoff, a vegetable kind of mushroom spinach stroganoff. I also did a baked ziti, and what was the other one? Oh, baked ravioli, which sort of ends up being like a lasagna. I did a crock pot lasagna, so it's all in a bag, and then you put it in a crock pot, and it ends up tasting like lasagna, obviously not having the same texture as lasagna. I also put together 3 different kinds of pork loin meals. One of them is an orange honey pork loin. The other one is a honey curry pork loin. Those get served with, like one gets served with rice, the other gets served with quinoa. And then the last one is a barbecue pulled pork, and that will go on a sandwich. And I can't remember. I know that there's probably something else. Oh, also a sweet and sour meatball. So I did a couple batches of each one of these. So I just got enough really for one whole serving for like a family of 4, but since there's only 2 of us, I made the whole batch and then bagged it up or put it in a pan to freeze in just servings for 2. It really came out to be pretty economical too. I spent under $200 at the store yesterday, and then ended up coming home with enough to make 28 meals. Oh, chicken enchiladas, that was another thing that I made. So anyway, it came out to, if you figure it out per person per meal, it came out to $3.57 per person per meal. And so I think that's a really great deal. You just kind of have to have some time knocked out so you can do it all in one day. So let me go ahead and show you some of the clips that I did yesterday as I was cooking. So this pile of stuff is all of the stuff I bought to make 28 dinners for 2 people. Sorry, still got some Christmas stuff on the counter. But I'm gonna go ahead and now start to kind of organize this so I can begin to prep my meals. So I want to show you this. I'm actually making one of the meals tonight for dinner. So I broke the recipe in half. I'm putting it in the crock pot, and then I'm going to take the rest of the stuff and freeze it so I can have it for another night. But I thought I would try one out tonight. And this one is a tater tot casserole. And so it's got, you can see, you spray the bottom with cooking spray because this stuff is actually supposed to end up kind of crispy. So you put in frozen tater tots, some bacon pieces, and some cheese, and then I'm going to put diced chicken on top of that, followed by some more cheddar cheese, and then you put in milk and salt and pepper. Then it just goes in the crock pot for anywhere from 4 to 6 hours, depending on whether you have it on high or low. And so I'll show you what this is like as we go along. So now I've just layered the ingredients. So with the tater tots, bacon bits, cheese on the bottom, then the layer of diced chicken, then more cheese and bacon, then more tater tots, then more cheese and bacon, and then now I add, oh, there was also salt and pepper that seasoned the chicken, and then the milk goes on top and it's ready to cook. So one tip for when you're filling your freezer bags is to take the top and roll it over, roll it backwards. That way when you kind of slop some things on the edges, it's not actually getting in the seal part of the bag, and then when you flip it back over, anything that you've slopped on the sides will just be inside the bag. Now this one here is the only one I'm not going to freeze laying flat. I put the milk at the bottom and then the chicken, and I just don't want the tater tots to get all soggy. So I put the tater tots on the top, and then I figure once I thaw it out, I can remove the tater tots and then start doing the layering thing, and hopefully that works. But you can see here that I have it labeled. I have the date, December of 2015, what it is, and then that I cook it on low for 4 to 6 hours. So all of that now will be there, so I'll know how to cook it. Now, as you can see here, a few of the recipes I picked out involved some cooking ahead of time. So this is I'm actually making baked ziti, and so I have to cook the pasta ahead of time. And then I also did this other thing called a pizza casserole, and it had pasta that I had to cook. And then over here, I'm using a meat sauce in a thing called a baked ravioli, which is really kind of a fake lasagna. So rather than doing all the lasagna and layers of cheese and stuff, I use cheese ravioli, and it makes it a whole lot easier. The other ones, though, were all ones that I was just able to throw things into a Ziploc bag without doing any cooking, just prepping, and then put those straight into the freezer. You can see here how easy it is to just start putting some ingredients in and then just sitting the bag on the counter with the top part rolled over. You can see right here that I splashed some, and rather than having to worry about wiping off the edge, it doesn't really matter, because once this comes up, that splash part is just going to be inside. So right here I wanted to show you how these things can lay flat and freeze in your freezer. This is a cheesy tortellini recipe, and so all the stuff is in here. I browned the ground beef and put in the different elements for the sauces or the sauce, and then put the tortellini. That's just refrigerated tortellini from the grocery store. Put that in there. And then I didn't double the recipe. I cut the recipe in half so it would serve two. And then that will freeze flat. And then over here I had made some curried pork loin, and pork loin is obviously a different shape. Sorry about that. And so I just kind of wrapped the Ziploc around itself, and I'll store those like this. All right, so let me try to show you some of this stuff. Down there in the very bottom of my freezer, I have a stack of some things. And so this right here is a baked lasagna. This is a cheese tortellini that is also going to go in the crock pot. Then I have several things with pork roast, or pork loin. So those, I'm just stacking down here. Then on top of that, I have a couple of pans here of baked ziti. And then this is another serving of that tater tot casserole kind of thing. In addition to that, I have a couple of pans here of what is called pizza casserole, but it's really kind of like a pasta that has pizza flavorings. And then finally, I have this big thing here of baked ravioli. So that's a lot of stuff, and there were some at the very bottom I didn't name. Oh wait, there's a couple more here. That's, what is that? Honey teriyaki chicken. So I came up with 28 meals when all was said and done. So I wanted to just point out a few tips that make this whole process easier. One of the things I think that slowed me down yesterday is that I didn't do all of the, well, on Food Network they would call it mise en place, all of the prep work ahead of time. If I had figured that I'm going to need a total of 2.5 cups of onions, I could have just chopped them all at once and then taken what I needed for each recipe. As it went, I was kind of cutting things as I was going. In the future, I will completely prep all of the cutting stuff. In fact, that could be one thing I do on one day and not the other stuff. So I could just cut up my bell peppers, my carrots, my celery, my onions, all of that kind of stuff, and put those into Ziploc bags in the refrigerator. And then on the day that I'm gonna cook, then I just have all of this stuff that I can pull out of there. I could also do that with browning the ground beef ahead of time. And then on the day that everything's getting prepped, it would go much faster. Another thing, and I showed you in there, and it's really important I think to do, is to take your Ziploc bags and turn the edges over. It just makes filling those bags a whole lot easier. And if you happen to slop some on the sides, it doesn't matter because or slop it on the top of the bag, it doesn't really matter because that's not really the top because you folded it over. I've also purchased on Amazon.com, I haven't received it yet, these little things. They're kind of plastic deals that have these little arms and a clip, and it's meant for putting a Ziploc bag in, and it clips and holds onto it. and then it's held open for you. So you could have a bunch of those out and then you just start dumping things in. So I'm hoping that I get a little bit more efficient with this. The other thing to remember is that you need to have space to store everything. So you need to have space to put all of the ingredients before you cook, and you also have to have a really good place to be able to stack all of your stuff in your freezer. So before you start getting all ambitious, make sure you go through and take stuff out of your freezer that maybe is freezer burned, that you're just not going to eat, it's been in there too long, and just make some space for all of this. So another thing is that with all of these recipes, they all have to be completely thawed before you start to cook them. If you put a thing of frozen teriyaki chicken into your crock pot and then you cook it according to the directions, cook it on low for 7 to 8 hours, well, that's 7 to 8 hours if everything was thawed. And so you need to make sure that those things get thawed before you put them in there so that you're cooking everything properly. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I hope that maybe it has inspired you to do some things that help you kind of just get ahead a little bit so you don't have to be running around like crazy trying to keep up with everything else in your life, including meals for your family. Remember, I'm going to link the coordinating blog post in the space below, which will take you over to my blog at myflagstaffhome.com, where you can take a look at just some of the different things that I was doing yesterday, and in addition to that, I will put all of the links to all of the recipes that I made yesterday, and hopefully you'll give those things a try. If you have some really great ideas for freezer meals, I would so love to hear about those, so please comment in the space below. And if you're not currently subscribed to my channel, just hit that button right there. YouTube will let you know when I upload new videos. So take care, you guys, and I hope I'll see you again on my Flagstaff home. Bye-bye.